So I followed the plan. I executed the plan, and frankly, I crushed the plan. It was the plan that every kid in high school in the 80s was given. You go to college, you get a degree in business, you get a job at a big company, and you work until you get to the top of the org chart. I followed that plan like it was gospel. I went to college, I got a degree. With one small edit, I got a degree in communications in business because I like people that much more than I like numbers. From there, I graduated and I got a job at an insurance company. Lasted a year, then I went to a healthcare system. Did that for 3 years and I said, okay, now I got the skills, I go get the big job. So I went and applied for a position at an international multi-billion-dollar company in Milwaukee. I interviewed with them for 6 months. And I got to tell you, every interview I was bringing the heat, but they just wouldn't commit. And so I finally wrote it off. My sister in Minneapolis said, hey, come live with me. There's a lot of jobs that you can apply for here. And so I was considering it. All of a sudden I get a call from the company. And it's their VP of HR. And he says, listen, I got good news and bad news, Steve. The good news is we want to hire you. The bad news is we just declared bankruptcy this morning. I have 30 minutes to get your paperwork in or I can't hire you, so I'm going to call you back in 20. All right, so now I'm thinking, all right, I've already written off this company. I'm going to go to Minneapolis, but there's a wrinkle. I met a woman, been on a couple of dates with her, really like her. And so I'm thinking like, okay, I could stay, but it's a bankrupt company, but I could date the girl more, or I could move to Minneapolis, and the clock's ticking, right? I'm on the clock. So I did what any rational man would do on a Tuesday afternoon when faced with a quandary. I called the woman. And I said, listen, hey, it's Steve. And she's like, hi. I'm like, hey, you know that company I was telling you about? They offered me the job. She goes, oh, that's great. I said, yeah, but they went into bankruptcy this morning. She goes, oh. And I said, I guess my question is, like, I really like you. And if you see a future, I'll take the job. And so do you like me? And she said, so like if you take the job, you'll stay? I said, yeah. She said, take the job. Best advice I've ever been given. Because within 12 months, that company turned around. And within 2 years, I married that woman. I spent 13 years at that company. I burned through 7 passports. I spent 13 years at that company. I burned through 3 passports. I had 7 promotions. I was the youngest VP they ever had, right? It was a great ride. Year 13, though, travel's not as much fun anymore. The job isn't as challenging. Now, you consult the plan. The plan says what? Go to a bigger company. So that's what I did. Went to even a bigger job, bigger responsibilities. And it was a multi-billion-dollar company. Within 12 months, the newness had worn off. Within 2 years, I bypassed it not being fun, and I went into miserable. I didn't like the job. I didn't like the leadership. I didn't like who I was in that job. And so again, what the plan says, well, this isn't the right fit. You go to an even bigger company. But then the trip happened. It was a trip to a week and a half to our Italian corporate offices. I'm going to fly first class. I'm going to stay in the finest hotels. People are going to take me out to lunch and dinner. They want to hear my opinions. They want to get my insights. And I am miserable. I don't want to go. This is Italy, all expenses paid. Couldn't get out of it. So the day comes, my wife drives me to the airport, right? Gives me a kiss goodbye. I go through security and I realize I forgot my books. I'm a reader, especially if I'm going to be on an 11-hour flight. And so I go to the bookstore. Now, normally I'm a business book guy or I'm a murdery book guy, it's a different pivot point story. So I'm going through there and I see this book called The Happiness Project by Gretchen Rubin. And I'm like, well, that's what I need. I need some happiness in my life. So I buy the book. Get on the plane, we take off, I have a drink, I have dinner. All around me are business people, tourists. They're excited, they're having fun, right? It's a party, except for the dark cloud in 2A. So I hunker down and I start reading the book. And it was like this, Gretchen Rubin and I had had the same career to the same point, except hers was in law, mine was in HR. And there's a point where she's miserable, and she's riding home on the bus. It's a rainy, gray day, and she looks herself in the reflection of the bus window. In a moment of utter transparency, she says, what do you want from life? And her answer was happiness. I said, wow, what an interesting experiment. So I put the book down, and I look at my reflection in the airplane window, and I said, what do you want from life? And the word that came out was meaning. Meaning. I'm shocked, right? Any other time, any other place, the word would have been success. I don't know what to think of this. And all of a sudden, it's like this door opened up in my head. And these thoughts that I had never dared thought before are coming rushing out. Questions I was fearful to ask myself. I start to cry. And I'm going to tell you right now, nothing freaks out a flight attendant on an international flight than a businessman starting to cry. But I'm trying to process this realization that I've been working the wrong plan for 20 years. I can't tell you a thing about that trip to Italy, except, number one, I had every emotion you could have. Sadness, fear, loss. But then I'd have like these moments of excitement and joy about what I could do. The other thing was, I should win an Academy Award for the acting I did for that week and a half, because externally, I look like a businessman who had his shit together. Internally, far from the truth. By the time I got back on the plane, I had made 3 decisions. Number 1, can't do corporate anymore. Can't do HR. Number 2, I got to do something that has impact, something that has meaning. But I got to do it on my own terms. And number 3, I got to do it with my wife. So as the plane starts to descend into Chicago, I start getting really nervous, right? Because my wife kissed a successful executive goodbye. And now what she's getting in return is a changed man, someone who can't go back. And that turns to feeling selfish. She gave up her career for me. She stayed home while I traveled. We had lived in 3 countries, 5 states, and 10 homes. And now I was going to tell her, I want to chuck it all. Finally that night, after the umpteenth time where she asked me, is everything okay? I finally spit it out. I said, I can't do this job anymore. She said, do you want a different job? Are we going to move? I said, no, this is bigger than that. This is seismic. I need a new plan. And I think she saw it in my eyes that this was it, right? That this was important to me. And so we spent the next weeks, months talking about what this could look like. And I got to tell you, there's some really difficult conversations in there, with also a couple moments of humor. There was one where we're like really going at it. We're talking about like how much money are we going to put at risk? And all of a sudden she stops and she looks at me and she goes, maybe we should just buy a cabin. Which I think is the most Wisconsin answer to a career crisis you can have. But we figured it out. And we did it. 10 years ago this year, we bought the Employee Resource Center, ERC. It's a mental health benefit company. We contract with employers so their employees and their families have free and confidential access to mental health counseling. We put every dollar we had at risk to buy it. Have I told you I'm not a counselor? I can't do the work, but here's what I know. I know we bought a good company, and it does great work. Every day, every hour, we're helping people. We're making a difference. Thousands of people every year. Now, that's not to say there aren't rough patches. We've had budget crises, staffing shortages, failed initiatives, pandemic, my own bout with cancer for 9 months. But here's what I know. Every night I go to bed, and it can be the worst possible day, but I put my head down, and I know in my heart what we're doing is making a difference, and what we're doing has meaning. Since then, we've started 4 more companies. Each one is its own little plan. It's a passion project where we're helping our communities. In fact, that's the shared purpose statement of all 5 companies of the Baue Management Group. We care, we help. Listen, we're all given a plan when we're young, right? It's given to us by people who love us, people that care for us. And there's comfort and there's safety in that plan. And I understand that I wouldn't be standing here right now if I hadn't worked that plan. I followed the plan, I executed the plan, I crushed the plan, and then I burned it to the ground. And with my wife, we built a new plan. And in that plan, I found meaning. Thank you.